2. This is for Tuesday, September 3rd, doing some more factoring today. Just a quick update on the situation. Principal Wright and I are once again tomorrow. We're going to be reaching out to the county, hoping to get this paperwork issue sped up. Hopefully we can get this resolved as soon as we can. We're still waiting on the county to take care of it. Hopefully it will be very soon, though. I'll keep you all updated. All right. So first of all, let's get started filling in some of these blanks. Now, these blanks are actually Miss Wiggins' blanks. So for this first one, I'm not 100% sure what she wants to go in here. So I'm just going to give you my answer of what I would put in here. So when we've got standard form of a quadratic equation, right, that's what we've been dealing with from last week, right, where we have something in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, a, b, and c, those are just numbers, right? We never actually see the a, b, and the c in there when we are factoring these expressions. We are, the a, b, and c are just placeholders. They're constants is what we call that in math. So a is the constant in front of the x squared term. So we could say the constant or the number before the x squared term, before x squared. B is the same thing. It's the constant before x. So we can say the constant before x. And then c is just this number hanging out all by itself at the end. C is whatever does not have any x on it. There's no x squared. It's just a number by itself. There's just the number at the end. All right, so a is the constant before x squared. B, this CB, I'm just abbreviating. That's the constant before x. And then c is just that number there at the end. All right, so here's starting in how we're going to factor these. So how to set up the diamond. Up at the top, you're going to bring down the b coefficient. All right, so that's going to be right here. B, don't forget the sign on it. Whatever is multiplied by the x, so in this case, that's going to be a -2. And then down in the bottom of the diamond, down below, it is going to be the product. We're going to multiply them together of the a coefficient and c. All right, so we've got a times c. So in our example here, that's going to be a times c. And again, be mindful of the signs. So a is 3, and then b or c is not 5. It's actually -5. All right, so a times c is going to be 3 times -5. All right, so down here, that would be a -15. All right, so there's an example as far as how we're going to set this diamond up. Now, in practice, we've got a few examples here. Let's go over. This is going to be on your next page, so take a look at this. So we're going to see how to do these examples. All right, so here's what's going on here. It's a little bit of a pattern. You're going to get the hang of it. I think we got 4 examples in here, so you can always go back and rewatch this as well. So here, top of the diamond, that is going to be that b term, right? So in this case, that is our -12, right? That is our b. And then down below, it's going to be a times c. So we've got a times c, 4 times -7, which is -28. All right, so how we use that, take going from the diamond over to the box. Here's what's going to happen. So again, as usual, we're going to look for a couple numbers. We want them to add to -12, and we want them to multiply to -28. All right, so think of, yeah, that's right. No, I just wrote it wrong. I didn't say it wrong. I wrote it wrong. All right, we want them to multiply to -28. All right, so think about what those numbers are. Again, usually the fastest way to do this is think of everything that multiplies to -28. All right, so we got 1 in -28 or -1 in 28. There's no way I can combine 28 with 1 and then add those up to get -12, right? Because remember, we're adding up to -12, so that's not going to work. Our other options are 4 and 7, right, where one of those two is negative, but that also will not give us -12. So the one other thing that we could do is we could try some combination of 2 and 14, right? Because we're really saying what times what equals -28, but when we add them, it equals -12, right? So it's going to be a 2 and a 14, and the question is which one of those is negative, right? Well, since we want them to add up to a negative number, right, that means the larger one needs to be the negative. That tells us the 14 is the negative. All right, so now from here, again, it's a bit of a pattern. It takes some practice, get the hang of it. So we'll follow through all these examples here. All right, so in the top left corner of the box, we're going to write that first term right here, 4x squared. That's going to be like your A, that first term right here. Down in the bottom right corner, it's going to be C, so -7. And then those two numbers that we just found, the 2 and the -14, those are going to be the other two boxes. So we've got 2, and they're also going to have an x on them. This is just how we're factoring, and it's going to be the same way every time. We're always going to put an x on those. So it's going to be a 2x and a -14x. All right. Also, there is no pattern. It doesn't matter where you put the 2x and the 14x. I could have put the 2x here. I could have put the -14x there. The order of that does not matter. You'll actually end up getting the same answer regardless of where you put it. So don't freak out over that. You're going to get the same answer either way. That's the good news as far as that is concerned. All right. Now from here, we're one step away. The last thing we need to do is look for the greatest common factor in each row and in each column. I'll do columns first. So here's what we mean by that. So if I'm looking at this yellow column, so we're looking at this guy and this guy. All right, so our greatest common factor, you're going to look first at the numbers and then you're going to look at the letters. So numbers, we're looking for the largest number that goes into 4 and goes into -14. The largest such number is 2. And then we're also going to look for remember when you were looking for a greatest common factor and we've got variables, what you're going to take out is the smallest power. And don't forget, we've got that invisible 1 right here, right? So the smallest power here is going to be x to the 1. So that is 2x, or 2x to the 1, whichever one you prefer. And then here, we're going to do our other column. We're going to look right here. And now here, there actually is nothing we can take out, right? 2 and 7, there's no numbers that are going to go into there. And also, the 7 doesn't have an x, so we can't take out an x. And whenever this happens, there's just going to be a 1. You're just going to take out a +1. All right, so next let's do our rows. So we're going to look at this row first. So let's look at the top row. Well, let's fix that. All right, let's look at the top row. So we're looking right here. Okay, so the largest number that goes into 2 that goes into 4, that's just going to be a 2. And then the largest thing that goes into x squared and x, as we already determined, is just x. Same thing on the bottom row. So we're looking down here now. All right, largest number that goes into -7 and -14. All right, so when we're factoring, the only time it's going to be a negative factor is if both of our boxes in our row or our column are negative. So if they're both negative, then it's going to be a negative that comes out. All right, and the largest number that goes into -7 and -14 is -7. And again, one of our boxes has no x, right? Because this guy has no x, so we can't take out an x. The only time you can take out an x is if they both got an x. All right, so we put those two factors together. That is going to give you 2x plus 1, 2x minus 7. I didn't have much room, but that is what would go in those boxes. There was no greatest common factor to take out at the very beginning. I'll show you what that means in the next example. So this would just be a 1. All right, next example. This one we actually can take out a greatest common factor at the beginning. So here's what we mean by that. So first of all, look at these. Look at these 3 terms. Notice there is a number that we can take out, right? In fact, 2 goes into each of those numbers. 2 goes into 8, 2 goes into 24, and 2 goes into 18. All right, so I can take out a 2. If you take out a greatest common factor, remember what you're doing is you're going to divide each term by that greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 24 divided by 2 is 12, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. All right, there we go. So now that's going to make it a little bit easier for our factoring step. So when we go to factor, that 2 is just going to sit out front here. And all we're worried about for the rest of the problem is this stuff here. The reason that helps is because now we can deal with smaller numbers. Like we're dealing with like 9, 12, and 4 instead of 18, 24, and 8. It just makes the whole finding 2 numbers that add and multiply step a little bit easier because our numbers are smaller now. All right, same thing as always. Up in this top box is your b. So that's the guy that's just multiplied by the b. That's the 12. And then down here is your a times c. So that's going to be 4 times 9 is 36. All right, so this time we're looking for two numbers. Something plus something equals 12. And those same two numbers, when we multiply them, that is going to be 36. All right, and let's think. What are those numbers? My brain isn't working. It's 6 and 6. Why did it take me so long to come up with that? If you haven't noticed, I do these problems on the fly. So sometimes if I have to think for a minute, it's because I'm actually doing them as we're doing these videos. All right, 6 and 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. 6 times 6 is 36. Awesome. All right, so let's go into that next step again. So same thing, the top left spot in your box is going to be that first term. So it's going to be 4b squared. And when you're writing your B's, be careful. Make sure that that's a B and not a 6. Because I see all the time students will write their B's a little sloppy and it looks like a 6. So make sure you're writing it like a B. All right. And then down here is just that constant, that number hanging out at the end. So that is going to be a 9. Awesome. All right. And then these two guys, remember, those are the two numbers we found, and we just put an X on there. All right. So it's going to be 6X and 6X. Right, because remember those two numbers we found was 6 and 6, right? Adding to 12 multiplied to 36, that's where those 6x's come from. All right, and we're going to do the same thing we did last time with the rows and columns. Okay, go ahead and make sure this is written down. Pause the video. I'm going to erase it because I need room to write my greatest common factor stuff. So I'm going to erase that stuff now. All right, so let's do the same thing. Again, the order doesn't matter. I'm just going to do columns first and then rows. So I screwed up. This should be B's, not X's. There's no X's in our problem. These should be B's. So make sure. So as you're doing these videos, yeah, I'm sorry. When I goof up, that's my bad. All right. That should be a B, not an X, right? There's no X's in this particular one. I was just doing that out of habit. All right. Anyways, let's keep going. So we got on that first column right there, right? The 4b squared and the 6b, we're going to do greatest common factor. So the largest number that goes into both 4 and 6 is going to be a 2. And then with b squared and b, we can take out the lowest power, so just a b. And then we're going to come over here, look at the one on the right. So we got 6b and we got a 9. The largest number that comes out of that is a 3, so a plus 3. And then again, notice that this 9, there's no b on it, right? If both of the terms don't have a b or the letter, we can't take a letter out. So it's just a 3, not a 3b, just a 3. All right, let's look at this top row. Now we're looking, I'm going to change colors. Now we're looking over here at this green row that I just did in the green. All right, so again, same thing we just did actually. So the largest number that goes into 4 and 6 is 2. And b and b squared, what we can take out is just a b. Now we're going to look at the bottom row. And the same thing again, 6b and 9. That is also a plus 3. All right. So it's going to be 2b plus 3 and 2b plus 3. That's what's going to go in these two things. Those will be our factors, and that is our final answer. All right. 2 more. I know I went through that fast. If you need to, you can go pause the video, rewind always. And again, you can ask me questions. You can ask our substitute teacher questions. I believe it's Miss Moore. But yeah, always pause and go back if I'm going too fast. All right. Let's see what we got. So again, we're going to look for a greatest common factor, right? But there is no number besides 1 that goes into each of these. So there's nothing we can do there. So we're going to go to the next step. We're going to make our little diamond. All right. So up here, right? Up here, we're going to just put B. So negative 24. Down at the bottom, it's A times C. So that's negative 180. And this is a tricky one. This one's a little bit harder because we've got to look for two numbers that add up to negative 24 and two numbers that multiply to negative 180. All right, if you want, you can pause it, talk about your groups with it. But the two numbers that you're going to look for is 30 and 6 because those multiply to 180 and you can add them or subtract them to 24. So the question is which one needs to be the positive and which needs to be the negative, right? Because since we're multiplying to get to a negative, we need one positive and the other is negative. Well, to answer that, again, you're going to notice that since we're adding to the negative, the bigger number is the one that's got to be the negative. So that tells us the 30, it's going to be a negative 30 and a positive 6. All right, so we're going to come over here. we can write those in here if you want. It's negative 30 and 6. We're going to come over, take a look at our box method, get our box method set up. All right, so again, top left, that's going to be this guy. So that's going to be our 9v squared. Bottom right, that's going to be the c. So it's going to be negative 20. And then those two numbers we found is what goes in the other two boxes. Don't forget to put the letter on them, so it'll be v in this case. So it'll be our negative 30v and a positive 6v. We're going to go through that same process. Columns, look at the greatest common factor. Same thing for the rows. All right, so we're going to look right here. The largest number that goes into both 6 and 9 is a 3. And then v and v squared, what we can take out is a v. And then over here on the right, the largest number for negative 20 and negative 30. Since they're both negative, we're going to take out a, since they're both negative, it's going to be a negative that we take out. Largest number that goes into 20 and 30 is 10. All right. And then over here on the left, oh, sorry, not on the left, but it's our top. We're looking at the rows now. That top row, largest number that goes into, I'll do a different color. We'll do it in red just so you know what I'm talking about. Largest number that goes into 9 and negative 30 is going to be 3. And then a v squared and a v, that's going to give us a v that we can take out. And then this bottom row down here, largest number that goes into 6 and 20 and negative 20 is a 2. And since there's no v on here, we can't take out a v. All right, so that's our answer. We got 3v minus 10, 3v plus 2. And those are your factors for this one. All right, bit of a long video. Bear with me. We got one more. If you think you're good, go ahead, try it. And you can skip forward, check the answer, see if it matches up. Otherwise, let's do one more. All right, set up our diamond. See what we got. All right, so up top, remember that's the b, so we got a 7. Down below, it's a times c. Remember, don't forget to multiply them. So 2 times 6 is 12. This is a little easier this time, right? We want to find two numbers that add up to 7 and multiply to 12. Maybe this one's a bit quicker. We're going to get 3 and 4, right? 3 plus 4 is 7. 3 times 4 is 12. So those are two numbers. And maybe you're getting a little faster with this now with our box. So this first one is that whole x squared term. So we got 6x squared. Down in the bottom right, we got the 2. And then those other two boxes, again, the order doesn't matter, right? I could put the 3x at the top or the 3x in the bottom or the 4x. It doesn't matter which one. I'll do 3x up here, and I'll do the 4x down here, right? Remember, the 3 and the 4, that is coming from this 3 and this 4. And every time, you're just going to put the letter on as well. All right. And get some of these circles off of here. Okay. And last but not least, we're going to look column by column. So 6 and 4, we can take out a 2. X squared and x, we can take out an x. Let's check our other column. Nothing to do here, right? There's no number that goes into 2 and 3 besides 1. And since this 2 doesn't have an x, we can't take out an x. So that's just going to be a 1. Then we're going to check out our rows. So 6 and 3, we can take out a 3. X squared and x, we can take out an x. Bottom row. 4 and 2 will take out a 2. And then x, but there's no x on that 2. So that's going to just be a plus 2. All right, so that's your answer. So we got 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 2. And again, if you really wanted to check, what you could do is you could multiply them together, right? As we did in the last unit. So we could do 2x times 3x. That's going to give you 6x squared. You could do 3x times 1, and you'll get 3x. And so on. If you multiply them out and add them all up, sure enough, it's going to take you right back to what you started with. Right? So when we're factoring, we're really just finding two things that when we multiply them together, that gets us to this expression right here, what we started with. All right. If you have questions, ask the sub, email me, text me. I'm always available during class time. But that's all we got for today. So best of luck.